Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Good afternoon. The weekend's just a few hours away, and I'm so glad to have you all on board here today. Now, before we start, I want to do something interesting, okay? I want you all to change your name by adding the name of a favorite story character in front of your actual name. So how do you do that? You go to the participants list at the bottom of your page. For those who don't know how to do it, look and click on the participants list, and the participants list will appear. And then after that, you go to your name, find your name. So like my name is Sheila. I would request that all participants please mute your microphones so there's no interference. So go next to your name and type on the word more, and you will see a button that says rename. So click on rename and then enter a new screen name. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to rename myself, and then you click OK, and your new name will appear next on the participants list. So if you look, I renamed myself Starfish Sheila. Why Starfish Sheila? You'll find out shortly. So I'd like all of you to do this. Go to the participants list, all right? And then find your name, click on your name. Just next to your name, you will see a blue button that appears that says more. And when you click on more, it will say rename, and a box saying rename will appear in the middle, and change your name. Now, some of you might say, what movie character? I also don't know. Or what story character? I also don't know lah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now so that you can see, you will be able to see some names. These are some names I have on my screen. Maybe you want to choose. Maybe you want to be Count Dracula. So then you go to your name, click more, click rename, and then rename yourself. Maybe Jason, Count Dracula Jason, you know, frighten people. You can put that. Or maybe Vanita, you want to be Thumbelina Vanita. Or maybe, please mute your microphones. Thank you. Maybe you want to be Darth Vader, Dorothy, for example. So I'm giving you that option to do that now. Change your name. Let's do that quickly. Have some fun. Name yourself after your favorite story character. Okay, Joker Joanna, Cinderella, Dolphin Vanita, very good. Captain Hook Corina, nice. Dorothy Nicole, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, I believe. All right. Okay, that's great. Great. So let's have some fun. Give yourself a new name. Eeyore, Kung Fu Panda, very nice. You're very sporting lah. I like Mulan Pushpa, Mulan Fina, very good. We have Mulan competition after that. Okay. So even if you have a Malay story character, Thumbelina Janelle, fantastic. You guys are going for it. Very good. Okay, keep it up. For those of you who have just come in, who are changing our names and having some fun with it. Okay. All right. Now, so today we're actually here to look at storytelling for influence. Now, some people might be asking me, storytelling, are we here to write books and fairy tales? No. Storytelling has become, it's something that I've been asked to do more and more of. Companies are coming and saying, Sheila, can you teach storytelling to our people, storytelling to financial people, storytelling to salespeople, storytelling to CEOs? Because what we have found out, what people have begun to find out is that stories sell. No, I'm not talking about selling products here, yeah? I'm talking about stories actually can influence people to a greater level. Now, before I introduce myself and tell you who I am, a little bit more about myself, I want to make you a little bit excited. In this whole webinar, there is going to be at the end a task. So you stay the course at the task. At the end, there is going to be a task where you are going to get the opportunity to win a one-on-one storytelling coaching session with me. I'll tell you how it works later. But if you have, something to write, piece of paper and pen, or if you have a stylus that you can write on your phone, if you're not using your phone, just quickly grab anything, a pen and some paper, and keep it with you. Otherwise, you can just use your phones to type, because we're going to have a little interesting task at the end of this, which gives you an opportunity to win a 1-hour coaching session on storytelling with me. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. So today, what you're going to be learning at the end of this is you're actually going to be, if you stay the course, you're actually going to be learning how to identify a story that you want to tell to a specific audience, and to state the purpose, and to actually come up with a framework for telling that story. Okay? So in any kind of context or any particular purpose that you need. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. Who am I? My name is Sheila Singam. But before I tell you about myself, I want to tell you a story. This is a storytelling session after all. Some of you may have heard it before. It's not a story I made up. It's not original. It's by someone called Lauren Isley, and it's called The Star Thrower. As I said, you may have heard it, but never mind. Stay the course and let me refresh your memory. So there was an old man who, okay, someone's just joined. There was an old man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing and to get ideas for writing and speaking. And he had a habit of walking on the beach every morning before the sun came up to get ideas, right? Before he began his work. So early one morning, as he was walking by the sea, he loved to walk by the sea, he saw the beach from afar, and the beach appeared to be pulsating. So, and then from afar, he saw a young boy picking up something from the beach and throwing it into the sea, picking up something and throwing it into the sea. So what happened was that he began to get very curious, and he decided to go nearer to the beach and to the boy and see what was happening. As he walked towards the boy and he looked down, he noticed that what was pulsating on the beach was starfish. Hundreds and hundreds and thousands of starfish were on the beach, and they were just pulsating. And then he saw the boy picking up a starfish and throwing it into the sea, far out into the sea. He saw the boy picking up another starfish, throwing it far into the sea, and was going on. So when he came close to the boy, he said, "Young man, good morning. May I ask what you're doing?" And the young boy paused and looked at him and said, "I'm throwing back the starfish into the sea. You see, the tide has washed them up, and it's going to get hot real soon. The sun's going to come up. They're stranded on the beach, and they're going to die of dehydration. So what I'm doing is I'm throwing them back into the water so that they live." And the old man replied, "But young man, there must be tens of thousands of starfish on the beach. I'm afraid you're not really going to be able to make much of a difference." The young boy looked at the old man. Then he smiled. He bent down, he picked up another starfish, and he threw it far into the sea. And he said to the old man, "Uncle, it made a difference to that one." So, once upon a time, I, Sheila Singam, was a starfish. And then I became the young boy who threw the starfish into the water to live. And now I'm evolving into the old man who's telling these stories and writing the stories about starfish. I'm Sheila Singam. Now that was a story about me. I can, of course, have introduced myself and said, "Hello, I'm Sheila Singam. I'm the founder of Human Equation, a company that does talent development training and coaching. We are also in the communications business. I've been in this industry for more than 12 years, and I can go on and on and on like that." Now, the thing is, which one made a better story? Which one helped you to connect with me more? If you think it was the starfish story, and I told you two things. I gave you a brief bio and a starfish story. If you think the starfish story is what connected with you, type inside the chat box. If you go down and you will see a chat box, type inside the chat box, "starfish" with an exclamation mark. If you think the starfish story is what connected more with you than me telling you my bio. Great, great. I see a lot of you. Exclamation mark also can. Mulan Pushpa, no problem. Okay, just type starfish if you like the fact that I introduced myself with the starfish story. It made you get connected. Okay, it made you get connected. Now, let's start with what I want to talk about today. Okay, we've got more people coming on board, and that's great. Now, Aristotle said, oh, there's a Joe Low coming into the waiting room. How exciting. So Aristotle, okay, was a philosopher, Greek philosopher, and he came up with this theory that in influencing and persuading people, there are three components, okay? And so the first component is ethos. Ethos has to do with credibility and accountability. Now, when many people talk about their corporate profile, when they go for a meeting or they go for a pitch, sales pitch, and they give you a long 10, 15, 20 minutes about their company, what it has done, where it's been, all the credentials, that one is ethos. And the next component is logos. Logos is about logic. What is logic? Logic are the facts, the data, evidence that supports whatever points you're putting forth, whatever argument. For example, if you're selling something, logos would be the sales figures, how many people bought, how many people endorsed and said it's amazing and so on. So, okay, or even if you're talking about, how many people have a particular need and we as a company are fulfilling that need. All that is logos whenever you see data. And the third one is pathos or emotions. Pathos comes, okay, the word pathos itself means emotions. It's about how you connect with people's emotions when you are in a sales pitch, when you are at a meeting, when you're trying to influence people to give you something, maybe a budget to do something or to buy something, or at least to agree with you about something. Or these three components are important. Now I want to ask you a question. How many of you think ethos, logos, pathos, which is the most important? If you think ethos, type E in your chat box. If you think logos, type L. If you think pathos, type P. Which one do you think is the most important? Type E for ethos, L for logos, P for pathos. Type it into your chat box. Quick, let's see. Come on, everybody, let's participate. Okay, great. Keep on typing. I want to see what you think. Which do you think is most important? Ethos, credibility and accountability, logos, logic, or pathos, emotions? Very good. I like you guys. You really participatory here. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Aristotle said these three components of persuasion are there, but studies have begun to show that in terms of importance, this is the percentage attributed to each of these components. Meaning that if you can incorporate pathos and connect with people's emotions, that is 65% of the component towards influencing people. Okay, this doesn't mean you make people cry. It's not like you go in there and tell it like a Hindi movie or an Asian movie with drama and all that. We can have some drama, but in the business context, not everybody likes drama. But the point of the matter is that people, when they hear a story, they sit up and listen. Of course, if you just went in and to do business or tell people stories, but you don't have the logos, means you don't have the logic, okay? You don't have the logic and you don't have the ethos, meaning you don't have the credibility, then what will happen is that your story is just fluff and it is just flat. People say, but what facts do you have to substantiate? So of course you need to have logos, you need to have ethos. But again, today what many of us do when we go into business presentations and all that, we just talk about the logos and the ethos. How many times have you been for a presentation and it's PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint stuffed with figures, and then they talk about what we did, how good we are, but where's the story? So you're sitting down there and you have this information overload, but nothing's connecting with you. Now let's face the fact, people. Many of us make decisions based on emotions. We say we are logical, and we are. We use the logic and the ethos to actually support the decision-making process. But the first thing, when you go out to buy something, buy a house, buy something, eat some food, listen to what someone's saying, the first thing that connects you is at the pathos level, the emotional level. Okay? So, of all these three components, the most important would be pathos. But we cannot have just pathos without logos and ethos. All three go together. But you need to have that connecting story. Okay, now, why tell stories? Stories are important because of what? Anybody here wants to type in the chat group, why do you like stories? Come on, just type one word or one phrase. Why do you like stories? Or what do you think is the importance of stories? Just type one word. Just type one word. Stories are important because what? Interesting. Very good. It sells. Very good. It connects. Anyone else want to just type into the chat box? Stories are good because they're important, because they're intriguing. Very good. Yeah. It breaks the ice. Fantastic. Yes. Captivating. It's binding. Yes. You are all absolutely, they touch emotions. You're all absolutely correct. Brings out a point clearer. I want to bring to you some of the scientific sort of basis for why tell stories. Okay? Now, the thing is, our brains are hardwired for stories. Long before we had the internet, we had print, we had books and all that, stories were told from generation to generation to carry values, to carry purpose, to tell the stories of why a particular tribe existed and how they overcame adversity and all that. And actually were very effective in helping to instill values in people. So our brains love stories. Okay, if you ask any child, the minute you sit and tell, you have a bunch of children who are running around, you make them sit down and say, I'm going to tell you a story. They all sit down there riveted, and then you can keep them quiet for, even an hour if you have story with some drama and all that. And this doesn't go away. The thing is, when we become adults, we're programmed to think, oh no, it's all about logical thinking. It's all about the brain. We need to just have logic, and we need to have facts and data. But anytime you go somewhere where, your barriers are down and you're relaxed, you hear a good story, you really enjoy yourself, right? And this is why companies like Netflix and TGV and GSC and all those that make movies, they actually survive and thrive because people like stories. And stories stimulate parts of the brain involved with understanding thoughts and emotions. They release happy hormones. Okay, they release oxytocin and dopamine. That's hormone for excitement. And oxytocin is released when their stories involve people and good deeds. Sort of like, heartwarming stories. So you have these good hormones being released when you have good stories. And someone said earlier, you use stories to sell. Yes, because in evaluating brands, people primarily use emotions. They might do their research and so on, but they will also go and see how many people are using it, who is using it, how they connected, and so on. Okay, and this is very important. They make us experience what's happening as if we are there. How many of you have heard someone telling a story? Oh, never mind, let's just go into a movie. Okay, I talk about Hindi movies because this is so funny, right? I go and watch Hindi movies with my friends in the cinema sometimes, and then they all get so drawn into the movie, and then when the lights come on, they're all crying, their eyes are all red, and I'm like, seriously, you guys? But then they make you experience what's happening as if you're there. So this is why we tell stories, to connect, okay? To connect with so your brains are hardwired for stories. So when you say that, oh no, stories are only for the heart, no, only for the emotions, not exactly true, okay? Now, let's look at some of the elements of a good story, okay? The elements of a good story. Now, I want to ask you, I want to tell you that there is an acronym that I want you to remember. It's very simple. It's called SHARP. It's called sharp. All right. So your story needs to be short. Don't lah panjang, half an hour story. People are like, what's the point of this? They're also pushing, their heads are going around. And at the end of the day, you lose them and they will just shut off. So your story's got to be really short. 2 to 3 minutes, not more. Okay. Anything more is too much. The stories have got to be happy. It doesn't mean we're false optimism. Now, I once went into a training program, and I'm going to tell you a story now that you might think it's sad, because one of the things about telling stories, you got to be authentic, and you got to be willing to be a bit vulnerable, especially if you're telling the story about yourself. So I went into a training program, and this was about 6 months after my husband had passed away. And yes, I had lost my husband to cancer. And I was telling them, because all these people in the training program were whinging about their life. This was before MCO, before COVID. Oh, our company treats us like this, and we're like that, and we're like that. And we got all these issues. So I was telling them the story of, okay, I didn't say, you're complaining, you want to hear my story. I didn't do that. I just said, everything is relative. About 1 year ago, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. I nursed him for 9 months. He passed away 6 months ago. And some people said, how can you be here standing before an audience? And I said to them, because I was teaching them about managing their state. And I said, and this is about state management, the ability to go on and do things out there. Because I'm a trainer, I cannot fall apart and collapse in the middle of a training program because I'm grieving, So you need to learn to manage your state. You need to do this and you need to do that. And as I was telling the story, I saw some women in the audience getting like really sad and all that. But that's fine, because I ended the story on a high note. And I said, you can always take control of your life. You can always take control of your reactions. You can always take control of your outcomes. And here's what how I'm going to show you. And after that, everyone got really motivated and inspired. And so many people came to me after that and said, we just felt so privileged that you shared that personal story with us. And when you do this, of course, you don't have to share all your deep, dark secrets, but being authentic, and our stories also have to be relatable. If you talk to, if you went to the moon and you came back and you talked about going to the moon, people won't relate. But if you talked about what you felt and how that impacted your life, that might be relatable. And of course, your story needs to be purposeful. Don't simply go and tell any old story without a purpose. Simply, I used to have a physics teacher who did that. I didn't learn much physics, I can tell you. Every day he'll come 40 minutes period, he'll be talking stories for 20 minutes, nothing to do with physics. If he had something to do with physics, I tell you, I would have been a physicist today. Instead, I studied mathematics, okay? So there are two types of stories again. You can have a literal story, meaning your own story, what happened to you, very direct, or you can have a lateral story, which is like a metaphor, which is like the starfish story that I told you earlier, okay? So, what is the acronym for a good story? I'm going to ask you later to type into the chat box. Not yet, yeah? Okay, it is short, happy, authentic, relatable, and purposeful. So, remember the word sharp. All right? Remember the word sharp. Now, the next thing about crafting your story. Just now I talked about what are the elements of a good story. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the process. Okay, I'm going to talk about the process. So they can be remembered this way: 3 S's and 3 F's. Okay, F for fish, S for starfish. Okay, so 3 S's. Let's discuss the 3 S's first. The first thing you need to remember is sequence. Your story cannot be all over the place, start in the middle and then, but okay, wait, I forgot to tell you, before this happened, that one happened, and then people are going, what, especially if you're doing like online webinar, or someone comes late into the meeting and they're like, what happened? So have a sequence. This is why you need to plan your story. Don't simply go there, as they say in Malay, jangan pergi tembak one story, okay? Plan your story. Have a really good introduction, middle, and end. All of this in less than 3 minutes. Sequence must be there. Next thing, it must be specific. Focus on one event or a specific moment or a place or one memory so that people can identify. If your story's got too many things going inside, okay, or if it's too big picture at world level, people will disconnect. And the next thing is you want to have sensory words inside your story. I'm going to test you here. I'm going to say two things. I'm going to say it the same way. The other day, I went for a party and there was a lot of food. Okay, so that's the first one. The other day, I went to a party and there was lots of food. Compare that to this. I went to a party and I saw the table. It was groaning with all manner of food. There were colorful pizzas, elegant small iced cakes, gardens of green salads dotted with luscious red tomatoes, and a pink salmon glistening with butter in the middle of the table. Now tell me, y'all feel hungry or not now? Feel hungry, right? I guarantee you after this webinar, you're going to go out and have some tea. Some of you already thinking of it now, but please stay the course. Don't go yet. Finish it. There's a good little challenge at the end. So these are the 3 S's. Must have a good sequence, must be specific, and must have sensory words. I remember when I was a journalist, I used to write food reviews, and the restaurant owner the paper I was writing for options, the edge, right? On Saturday, it would come out. And then on Monday, people would call me, restaurant owner, call me, why, you should have warned me lah. I had such a full crowd, nobody, and I didn't have enough food and didn't have enough place. I'm like, oh, is that a problem? It's not a problem, right? But anyway, I realized why, because I was using and describing the food, and when people read it, you know, it was as if they were experiencing it. They could taste it on their tongues. That's what you want to do with your story. The next are the 3 F's. Okay? Flow, form, and finesse. Flow is you need to have an introduction, middle, and end, and they need to connect seamlessly. Just like I talked about sequence. So you need to have it in a sequence, and then you need to flow from the beginning, middle to the end seamlessly, not like staggered, jagged, you know, like choppy, yeah, because then people don't get it, they won't follow. The next thing is the form. You need to practice how you want to tell or deliver the story. Don't just go out there, you practice. Like today's starfish story is such a common story, but I practice delivering it. So there's some work to be put in. And finesse is when you get rid of unnecessary words, unnecessary pictures, unnecessary content. You need to trim that story you want to tell until it's not bare bones. No, you need to have the sensory words and all that, but enough information for people to get a picture. Because if you go and crowd it with too much information, then people lose the plot, yeah? Okay, now I'm going to throw you a question. I'm going to ask, what are the elements of a good story? I told you earlier, in the earlier slide, what are the good elements of a good story? The acronym SHARP. Type into your checkbox, what does SHARP stand for? The first person to get SHARP correct, first person to get SHARP correct, you get 20% of my storytelling program. Okay? Wow, very good. Matt Hatter Mel, you please afterwards, you send us your details. Please switch off your mic. Matt Hatter Mel, please send us your details so that we can contact you, or in case you do decide to join our webinar, our seminar later, our program later, just tell us who you are. Very good, all 3 of you. Okay, very fast. Okay, now let's talk about, we have talked about this, right? What is the element, what are the elements that are sharp, okay, in your story? Now we talk about the process. So you need to have a sequence, you need to have specific, sensory, flow, form, finesse. Now you're going to say how to remember all this, Sheila. I'm going to give you a little task at the end of this, for which, you know, you get, the best one will get my one-on-one session with me. But that is something that comes with the program. But just to remember this, if you remember these 6 facts, it's already enough to get you started together with SHARP. Okay, it will definitely improve your storytelling skills. Now, the next thing is, how do you want to present the story? How? In what form? Do you want to go and stand before the audience and tell the story? Do you want to do a video? You could do live before a verbal audience. That's what TED Talks are. Now, I recommend to all of you very, very strongly to go and listen to TED Talks. They have so many topics. Go and listen to TED Talks and choose and identify. And now you know already which TED Talks have a good story. That is the one that probably connects better with you. Go and listen. I give you an assignment, a task. Go back over the next 1 week, one day, listen to one TED Talk, and then decide which one you like best. Chances are there will be a story there. So you could be telling your story verbally before a live audience. And that itself requires some other skill sets. You need to learn to modulate your voice. There are times in the story when you want to talk very fast to build up towards excitement. And there are times in the story when you might want to slow down a little bit and go a little quieter to add impact. Some people don't like silence, but silence can be very effective when you're telling a story. And then sometimes you want to use your tonality. When you use a word like listen, there's a command there. And I'm telling all of you now, listen very carefully, because there's going to be a challenge after this. Aren't you all excited? So you vary the tone. So you need to have a lot of vocal variety. If your voice is not so nice, you can learn to modulate. You know, some people have very high-pitched voice. You can modulate. I learned. I'm quite high-pitched because I talk very fast. But I've learned to slow down, and I've learned to modulate my voice and make it lower and slower when I need to. So there again is another technique which we'll teach you in the storytelling class, okay? But anyway, the next thing that you want to be looking at is, can you do a video? Maybe you can do like slides and then do a voiceover. There are so many tools on the internet today. There are classes, courses being offered. You can sign up or just go to YouTube, learn how to do this. Today, I tell you, we have become more clued in and there's more information available to humankind than any other time in our history, yeah? So you can make a video, all right? You can hire someone to do it or do it yourself. And when I say that you go out there and tell your story, deliver your story, it doesn't have to be so sophisticated. Sometimes your story is like so slick and sophisticated, people also cannot connect with it. It's not relatable to them because they look at you and they'll say, Yala, you're so, out there, you're so slick, you're so smooth, you're so equipped already, I cannot be like you. And then again, you lose them. So you got to be really natural. But of course, if you're making a movie, a short movie with a strong message, you might want to be a little bit more professional. Now, the next thing is a cartoon or a comic. I'm going to put a cartoon, a comic here. It's from one of my favorite cartoon segments. It's called the Awkward Yetai, right? And this is all about the body parts and how they talk to each other. And if you look at this cartoon on your screen, it's hilarious. But there's also something very deep and meaningful about it. If you can draw simple cartoons and then put, like this quotes and all that, is very, very compelling. And who says cartoons and comics are only for children? There are adults who buy comics and spend thousands of dollars collecting them. And I personally used to be a big fan of Mad magazine. They had cartoons, they had comics, and they were just so hilarious, but also a lot of satire and all that going on. So cartoons and comics are quite effective. Many of you know of Luna, right? Our cartoonist and even Lat, so they do tell stories through cartoons. Photographs with captions are also very effective. You want to tell the story of your life, you can have photos from different stages of your life and then showing the evolution, intersperse it with pictures. You can turn that into a video, or it can just be a story on, two-dimensional on paper. Digital interactive stories, you could have people coming on board, like on Zoom, and then you can record it. Someone starts a story, someone continues it. I do that in presentation skills. Sometimes when I do a workshop, I get someone to start one story with one sentence, the next person to continue. So in a class of 20, you actually generate a story which is hilarious, right? And of course, you can have a story which is acted out. Now, sometimes people think, no, but we need to have slideshow, we need to have PowerPoint, all that must be put there because if not, people cannot get it. And I don't agree with you actually, because I once attended a 12-day training in Sydney done by my NLP Master Practitioner Program by a gentleman called Sid Jacobson. It was 12 days, and during the 12 days, Sid used less than 10 slides and he used 2 videos. The rest of the time, he was using the whiteboard and sketching things out, and he was telling stories after stories after stories. And I tell you, it was one of the best trainings I ever attended. It was just so profound, and that's when it occurred to me, stories are amazing. And I went into this area of telling stories. Okay, now let's do some work. Okay, let's do some work. If you've got a pen and paper or something that you can, somewhere that you can write, I would like you to start doing this, okay? We're gonna do an exercise here. I promised people who came into this that they're gonna learn something very practical. So I'm going to ask you first of all, and you don't have to do this in the chat group and share yet, right? What I'd like you to do is, having heard everything so far, maybe now you're inspired to say, hey, I think I can tell a story for the next presentation or the next meeting, or I'm going to MC at a wedding, or I just want to tell a story about how I feel about refugees who don't have food. Anything at all. It's your story. You decide. I want you to write down right now a story idea that you have. Just write down the story that you want to write. Write it down in your own piece of paper. I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes. If you have any questions, please put it into the chat group and I will answer your questions. If you're not sure what kind of story, so please write it down. Please write it down. What is that story? Not necessarily in the chat group. If you want to, that's fine. I'm very happy if you want to share. Sharing is really caring. It's being authentic. And it's a good place to start that whole thing about writing. So just think about the story you want to tell. Let's do this, people. I mean, you're here to listen and I want you to take maximum out of this session. So let's do a little exercise. Okay, so that at the end of this, you actually have the framework for a story that you can develop on. Okay, think of a story you want to write. It can be just one word. All right, it's just the theme of your story, the topic, just that. And if you have something, just write, type Y for yes. Do you have your story? If you have it, type Y for yes. If you have your story, please type Y for yes. Great. Belle Sharifa has got it. Matt Hattermel has got it. Great. Great. I'd like to see more people because let's use this as a practical session for you to start your stories. Okay, start writing your stories. Come on, we've got 27 people in the room. Let's have more people. Yes, great. I like that. Everyone's got their story. They're typing in yes. Let's go with it. Great. Great. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, I like that. Keep the Y's coming in. Keep the Y's, keep the yeses coming in. Okay, right. All right, the next thing is I want to talk to you about making this story purposeful. So once you have the form, how you're going to present the story, we can take it later. You can ask questions in the chat group and I can help you with that. But the next thing I want you to do is to identify your purpose. And I'm going to explain this and then I want you to go back to that story and I'll tell you what to do. Ask yourself in your story, what is it you really want to say? Why do you want to tell this story? What do you want people to remember about your story? And what do you want your audience to do? Do you want them to just understand? Do you want them to agree? Do you want them to give you a budget? Do you want them to buy something? Do you want them to, communicate better with you? What is the purpose of your story? Simply telling a story for the sake of putting a story somewhere without a purpose is pointless. Because, you know, today, especially online, when you're talking, you need to be making a lot of sense. You need to have a purpose. And even face-to-face, in any medium for that matter, you want to tell a story, it has to be linked to an ultimate purpose. It has to be for something. So next thing I want you to do now, you have already written your story. I want you to identify your purpose. What is that story for? What do you want people to do after you tell that story? Okay, so you kind of know what story you want, what you want to say, how you want to say it. That is, you know, content that you deliver. But what is the purpose of your story? So if you have the purpose of your story, just write down inside your chat group, yes. If you have a purpose for your story, if you already thought about the purpose, then just type yes. Type yes. Giving you some time now to do that. Yep. Great, great. Type yes. Okay. Type yes. You have the purpose. You have the purpose. You have the purpose. Good. You have the purpose for your story. Fantastic. So now you have an idea for the story and you have the purpose for the story. What do you want that story to do? Okay, what do you want that to do for your audience? What do you want your audience to remember? What is the clear message for what? Sometimes we want to give people messages because, you know, you want to satisfy ourselves. But we need to give people a message because it's got to mean something to them. If you're just telling people things to satisfy yourself, doesn't mean anything to the audience, then you're wasting your time. People will listen and say so. But if you want to tell someone a story that is going to connect with them and give them meaning and something that they can take away or something that they need to do, then people take notice of your story. Okay, the next thing is to identify your audience. Sometimes you go and write a story. I want to write about world peace because I want the whole world to know what to do. The whole world, can you reach or not? Okay, how are you going to reach out to the whole world? So narrow down who is your audience. Who specifically is your audience? And what is the underlying human need with that audience? If the audience doesn't need to hear what you're saying, you know, if it doesn't connect with them here, touch them here, then, you know, you're using the wrong story for that audience. So it's very important to have the right story for the right audience. You don't go and tell a fairy tale to a bunch of C-suite, CEO level and all that, unless you can turn that story with a message. So once upon a time, I was in Form 6 and, you know, in ACS and IPO, which is a school which is very famous for their drama teachers, and every year they put on a huge massive play. So one of the things that we had every Friday in Form 6 was we had a competition. So we had to go out and put a play and we'd have this competition, right? So we had drama, tragedy, and we had comedy. So, of course, there was this bunch of boys. They were all boys in the class. Okay, I still remember it. It's upper science A. Yeah? They had all boys and there were no girls. But they did a story, they did a play, a comedy about Cinderella. Cinderella is supposed to be the sad story. They turned it into a comedy. And so we were wondering, okay, where's the comedy? But they made it funny. Boys dressed up as girls and all that. And that time it wasn't, you know, unheard of. So they did that and it was fun and they wore costumes and all that. And we thought, okay, at the end of the day, the prince is going to come and rescue Cinderella. The prince came, put the shoe onto Cinderella's very large feet because Cinderella was a man. And then you know what happened? Instead of the prince picking up Cinderella and running away, Cinderella in the dress, who was a man, of course, picked up the prince and said, let's go and live happily ever after. And it was hilarious. Because what they did was they put a twist on that whole Cinderella story. If you're Pandai and you know how to do that, do it. But you need to know how to do it well, otherwise it can fall flat. Huh? Okay? Comedy is also good stories, but you need to really know how to use it well. Huh? Because if you are not a comedian by nature, then it might just fall flat. And people who do stand-up comedy will tell you it's one of the hardest things ever. So now, who is your audience? Who do you want to tell that story to fulfill that purpose? I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, so now I want you to write down your audience. If you have got your audience, I want you to type A into the chat box. Who is your audience? Type A. If you've got your audience, just type A. So basically what you got now, you got your story, you got the purpose of the story, and you've got your audience. So who is your audience? Is it your team at work? Is it your family members? Is it your CEO and the board of directors? Is it your customers? Are you in sales? Is it your customers? Come on, if you've got your audience, you need to have an audience. If you don't have an audience, who are you going to tell the story to? The more the clearer you are about who you're telling the story to, the more effective you're going to be able to craft your story. Okay, so everybody out there, come on, let's do some work. You've got your story, you've got your purpose. Who's your audience? Type an A if you've got your audience. Right, great. That's fantastic. Okay, now, the final thing now is to put it all together. And this is where I'm going to give you a very simple framework. This is a framework that was designed by IDEO in a program that they have. IDEO is one of the foremost innovation companies in the world. They go around to all sorts of organizations and teach them how to innovate, how to use design thinking, how to grow their business, and to look at opportunities and capitalize. So this is the story that, from IDEO. This is the framework. I want you to remember this. If you have a pen or something that you can write on, just write this. I want to tell a story about ... to ... so that I can ... So the first one is, what is your story? To is your audience, so that I can, that is your purpose. So in all of this, what we did earlier, you have this framework already. So I want to tell a story about what? To whom? So that I can achieve what? Now, I give you examples, okay? Then, after I give you examples, I want you to start writing this. Once you have got it, type it into the chat box. Okay, type it into the chat box. Listen to instructions. I'll give you some examples first. For example, I want to tell a story about how to pivot your mind. So I want to tell a story about how to pivot minds to people who have had no income during the MCO, right? So that I can inspire them to make money to support themselves instead of feeling helpless. So I want to tell a story about how to pivot your minds. That is my story. To people who are very, very specific, to people who had no income during the MCO. Okay, I'm not talking about the whole world out there. I'm not talking about an entire corporation where I want to pivot minds for what. This is to people who have no income for what? So that I can inspire them to find ways to make more money to support themselves instead of feeling helpless. In fact, I did tell this story to a lot of people, and a lot of people did manage to go out there and find some income, some way of doing business that got them some money. It might not be as much as what they were earning before COVID-19, but it is still money. Okay, I give you another example. Okay, another example of how to pivot. Okay, example of how to frame your story. I want to tell a story about using design thinking tools. What's my story about? Using design thinking tools. To whom? To small businesses. That's my audience. So the second line is your audience. So that, for what? They can create new products and services that are relevant for prospective and present customers. Very specific. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the previous slide, this one. I want you to start writing. I am going to give all of you about 3 minutes to put together what you did earlier, about what's your story about, to which audience, for what purpose. I want you to put it together. Now, I want you to type it into the chat. How you're going to be availing of a 1-hour coaching session with me is I want you to type it into the chat box, and I want you to type your email address there. Why? Because after the seminar, we're going to go through all of your stories, and then we're going to select the one that is really the most spot on, and then we will email you to offer you. Okay, it might, if I say the first person to write it, it might not be making a lot of sense. So I want to know whether you have really paid attention and taken on all the steps that I've outlined in this seminar. I want you to do this inside your chat box and write your email address. Write your email address. Okay, so that and this is only open for people who have attended this session. So you're online now at this session. You can do this. For anybody else who is listening to a podcast or later, a video of this later, I'm sorry, but you can still contact us and we'll tell you how later. So I want to tell a story about, what is the story about, to who's your audience, so that for what purpose. Start writing. You've got some time now, 2 minutes. Start writing. Put it in the chat box with your email address. Let's go. I know some of you saying, Ayo, where to start? Don't overthink it, people. Don't overthink it. Just write it down. What do you want to tell a story about? To which audience? I'm sure you already have something in mind. Some meeting that you have, some sales pitch that you have, some presentation to the board, even an online session. Maybe you're going to do a webinar on something. So just type it there. Great. I'm seeing that people are, okay, great. I want to tell a story about how to understand fear in others to people in my organization, so that I can learn to respect and empathize the actions taken by others as a result of this fear and be able to react to it purposefully. Great. Please do type your email address. If you would like to avail of the one-on-one session later when we decide who's got a compelling story, Haliza, I want to tell a story about how fulfilling it is to do gardening to all ladies so that I can get more ideas on new learnings I can further explore. Okay, good. So do type your email address over there so that we can get back to you. And the rest, everyone, this is the time to practice what we have learned so far today. Everything that we've been talking about, a chance to at least get started on your story. Okay, to get started. I've given you lots of tips here today, but some of you are saying, yeah, but I don't know how to start. What story? To who are, how are? This is a good chance to start. So everybody out there who is being given a chance, type your story. I want to tell a story about what, to who. I want to tell a story about starfish to my CEO so that she sees how succession planning makes a difference in another person's career. Fantastic. Okay, sure. Pek Lian, great. You can also email to admin, and I'm going to type it here. Admin at human-equation.com. Okay, you can also email it here. Some of you are a bit shy, don't want to give your email address because you're afraid we might bombard you with promotional material. I promise you we will not. We don't do that. So please avail of this opportunity. We've got just a few more minutes. I'm going to give you another 2 minutes for those who are still working on their story. The chance is here today to practice it here so that we can come back and give you feedback. We will pick the story, but I promise you all of your stories, I will give you some feedback. All those who have typed their stories in this chat box, I will give you some feedback. Farah, I want to tell a story about how to care for terminally ill cat to all pet lovers so that they know how to do the same. Fantastic, very specific. Okay, so anybody else would like to continue with this? Please keep typing in the chat box. Okay, we will be collecting all of this and get back to you for your session with us. All right, anyone else? Please do type your points there. So we've actually come to the end of my session, my webinar. I put this up earlier. Coming back to storytelling. Stories connect with emotions. Stories release really good hormones in your brain. Stories influence people because they contribute pathos, which is the largest proportion compared to logos and ethos, which are also important. You can't just go in to any scenario and just tell stories and expect to influence people, because they'll go like, yeah, but where's the data supporting it? So you also have to do your homework, and you need to have that credibility to be able to tell the story. And and that's what also we mean by authentic. If you haven't done it, you can't tell the story. I can't come and tell you a story if, let's say, my friend said, oh, this thing happened to me in my travels to Italy. I can't come and tell you, oh, I went to Italy, this thing happened. That is what we call plagiarizing. I would just say, a friend of mine went to Italy recently, and this is what he experienced. Yeah, so then I would deliver that story to you. I want to end with a quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote the book The Little Prince. He said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea, which means create that reality by your words, by your stories. Bring them that sensory experience to make them want to listen and want to give you what you want to give you what? You want their understanding, you want their budget approval, you want them to buy something, you want them to connect with you. Give it all to them by telling your story. Okay, so that was storytelling today. Thank you very much. We've got some information there on how you can connect with us, if you want to take a picture, because I'm going to stop slide sharing now and go back to the session. And please, if you have any questions, I'm opening up to questions for the next 5 minutes. You can either type the question in the chat box, or you can unmute. It'll be really great, everybody, if you could sort of show us. You could sort of show us yourself, your video. Put on your video so that we can see you, and just take a quick picture. Really appreciate that, because it'd be great to see who was here with us. I hope. Thank you, Mulan, Pushpa, Haliza, Dorothy, Nicole, Madheta, Mel. I would really ask for your cooperation to just put on your video so we can take a picture of you. It doesn't matter if you are, not dressed up to the nines. That's fine. We're at home, wherever we are. It's Friday afternoon, just chill, be yourself. Okay, I am very interested to see who was Jolo. Jolo,
Hi,
can
Sheila.
show yourself. Hi Farah. Jolo, can show yourself or not? Nak tengok, who you are. All right. Rebel Regina. I don't see Rebel Regina. Is that you, Regina Fu? She really is. Come on, everybody. Let's do this for a nice group shot. You are here with me, Sheila Singam from Human Equation on Storytelling for Influence. Do you have any questions? Please ask. Any questions at all? Hey, Corina, how are you? Anybody's got questions? Of course, what I've given you today is just sort of an overview to get you started on the whole process of storytelling. But really, we go deeper into that in our program, teaching you not to be afraid of stories. A lot of people are very takut to tell stories. A lot of people are also very afraid to write down stories and all that. But the process will teach you how to write stories using different platforms. You want to do it on video, that's fine. Stand alone, stand up and talk face to face, that's fine. That's entirely up to you. Yep, Joker Joanna wants everyone to put on their video and wave. I would really, really appreciate if you could do that. Raymond Das from day 3. Rebel, Regina, Chio, Mulan, Tina, Jolo. Jolo doesn't want to show us. Are you the real Jolo or are you an imposter? Just asking. Okay. So everyone, let's give a wave because we're going to do a boomerang now. All right, everybody, let's just give a wave. Right. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time out Friday to be here at the session. If it was a productive session, just please say so. I'm going to launch a poll here. So if you get the poll, just answer yes or no. Let us know. And other than the poll, please type if the session was a useful session for you. Please type U for useful. Okay, that's all. If it's not useful, then just type N also. Never mind. I'll take the feedback. Okay. Just type U for useful. It was good for you. If you have any other feedback that you want to give us or any other queries, please email to admin, yeah? admin@human-equation.com. Thank you very much for being here and joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sheila. Bye.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Bye.
Jam the hologram. So interesting.